If you're a caregiver, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That time at the end of the day when things can get challenging. An agitation in a loved one that seems to just show up as the sun goes down. People call it sundowning, and it can feel totally overwhelming, right? Almost mysterious. But what if it isn't a mystery at all? Today, we're going to break down the predictable science behind this behavior and give you a really practical 4-step plan to help engineer calmer evenings. Let's get into it.
This one sentence just hits right at the heart of it, doesn't it? It's not always something you can point to directly. It's more like a shift in the air, a change in the light. It's that feeling in your gut that things are about to get a little bit harder. And that's the experience we're going to unpack together today.
A lot of caregivers even call this time the witching hour, and that's such a powerful name because it really captures how unsettling and almost spooky this daily pattern can feel. But here's the thing. Once you understand the pattern, you get to take all of its power away. So let's make this real. Take the story of a woman named Mrs. D. For her, this wasn't some vague feeling. Nope, it was a very specific set of behaviors. She'd start pacing the hallways, moving things around, almost like she was searching for something she'd lost. Now, this wasn't random at all. It was her way of responding to a changing environment. And that right there, that's the heart of the issue. Okay, so this is the crucial part. We have to reframe how we see this whole thing. Let's move away from those labels like sundowning or the witching hour, because they just sound so mysterious and out of our control. Instead, let's try looking at it through a new lens. This is a solvable behavioral cycle. It's a predictable pattern that's triggered by changes in the environment. And if it's predictable, well, that means we can do something about it. Right. This is where we get to that aha moment. What looks like erratic, random behavior, it's not erratic at all. It's actually a logical, predictable loop. And you know what's great about a loop? Once you can see it, you can figure out how to interrupt it. The key idea here comes from behavioral science, and it's a word called an antecedent. Now I know it sounds a little fancy, but it's actually a super simple idea. An antecedent is just a trigger. It's some subtle cue in the environment, like the light changing or a new sound that a brain with cognitive decline just can't process smoothly anymore. And that misinterpretation, that's what sparks all the confusion and anxiety. And what's so wild about this is just how normal these triggers are. We're not talking about some big, scary event. It's just the shadows getting longer, which can play tricks on your eyes. It's the sound of pots and pans as you start making dinner, signaling a change in routine. It's just plain old being tired at the end of the day. For most of us, these things are no big deal. But for a vulnerable brain, that combination can create this perfect storm of uncertainty. And that uncertainty is what kicks off this 4-part loop. Just look at how it feeds itself. First, that trigger causes confusion. Then, naturally, that confusion leads to anxiety. The anxiety then bubbles up as agitated behavior, the pacing, the repetitive questions. And then, and this is the part we can actually control, the caregiver often responds with emotion, maybe frustration or trying to reason, which, without meaning to, actually reinforces the whole behavior. It gives it energy. And bam, the loop starts all over again. If you take away only one thing today, let it be this. This is such an important shift in mindset. All that pacing, the questioning, the restlessness, it is not defiance. It's not someone trying to be difficult. It is a person trying to communicate that they are confused or anxious or completely overwhelmed by what's happening around them. The behavior is the message. Okay, so if we know it's a predictable loop, how in the world do we break it? This is where we get super practical. We are going to walk through a clear 4-step plan. And this isn't about fixing your loved one. It's about you becoming an architect of a calmer environment. And here it is, your blueprint. It's a really simple logical flow. First, you're going to become a detective and find that antecedent, the trigger. Second, you become an engineer and reshape the setting. Third, you change your own reaction. And fourth, you actively notice and reward the piece when it shows up. So let's break each of these down. Step 1 is all about observation. Seriously, before you try to change a single thing, you just watch. The whole goal here is to stop seeing the behavior as just chaos and start seeing it as data. A simple little notebook is your best friend here. You're looking for what happens right before the agitation kicks in. So this is what that log could look like. It's called an ABC log for antecedent, behavior, and consequence. Notice how specific it is. It's not just mom got upset. It's the sun started to set, then she paced, and then I asked her to sit. After just a few days of doing this, you're not guessing anymore. You actually have a pattern. You have your blueprint. All right, now that you know the triggers, you can get ahead of them. This is where you get to play offense instead of defense. Instead of just reacting to agitation, you engineer the environment to prevent it from even starting. You get to manipulate the antecedents. And listen, these are not complicated, huge changes. If you notice that shadows are a trigger, you just turn on the lamps before the sun even starts to set. If the switch to dinner time is a little jarring, you announce it gently ahead of time. You're basically creating this little bubble of predictability and comfort that works like an antidote to all that confusion. Step 3 is all about controlling the one thing you have total power over, your own reaction. When agitation does happen, and it will, the goal is to just not feed it with a big emotional response. Arguing with the behavior? It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. Instead, you just redirect that energy into something purposeful. Oh, this is such a brilliant example. The old response, mom sit down, it just creates a confrontation, right? It's a power struggle. But the new response accepts the energy, it's okay to walk, and then gives it a gentle, helpful purpose. Let's straighten the table. The pacing doesn't stop, but it transforms into something useful. That's the secret. Behavior doesn't just disappear, it transforms. And finally, we have step 4, and this is the one that is so easy to forget. When things are finally calm, our first instinct is just to breathe a sigh of relief and not mess with it. But this is the most critical time to strengthen that new calm pattern. You just have to simply notice it and name it out loud. So, when you put all of these steps together, your whole role begins to shift. You're no longer just a caregiver who's constantly reacting to a crisis. You become a designer, an architect of reassurance, proactively creating a space where peace is the most likely thing to happen. And here's why this is so powerful for people with cognitive decline. You're not asking them to remember to be calm. You're not relying on their memory, which might be failing them. Instead, you are building a world around them that naturally cues calmness. The environment itself does all the heavy lifting for you. I really want to let that one sink in for a second. We usually think of calm as this internal thing, right? Something we have to find inside ourselves. But for someone whose internal world is becoming more and more confusing, calm has to be an external gift. It has to be built piece by piece in the world around them. So as we wrap up, the real question isn't for me, it's for you. Based on everything we've just talked about, what is one small, totally manageable change you could make tonight? Maybe it's just turning on a lamp 30 minutes earlier. Maybe it's putting on some quiet, familiar music. It doesn't have to be some huge overhaul. It's those small, consistent changes that build an architecture of calm.